Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker is a returning Texylvania guest. It's a true honor to have him come back here. He's founder of one of the most successful companies in Romania. Sacha Dragic is the founder and board member of Superbet, Romania's newest unicorn in the realm of technology and gaming. Sacha launched the company in 2008 and served as a CEO until 2019 and has made it to be one of the few Romanian unicorns, multi-unicorns by now. Last time he talked a little bit about his personal journey and how he got there, and we'll get an update today on how he's scaling the company to international heights. What Mircea just said, right? Like, have international ambitions, go beyond Romania. I think that is like really, really critical, and Sacha has really like demonstrated that. He has a storied history, and he's like one of the most like founders that I respect most for his like mental flexibility to like approach things, learn every day. He's like a super powered learning machine, basically. And that's what we're gonna unpack in this fireside chat. Please all give a super warm round of applause to Sacha Dragic. Sacha, please join me here on stage. It's a great honor after
Thank
2
you.
years to have you back here. I think you have a good history with Texylvania.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I was talking earlier about connections, you picked up a board member at Texylvania even, so you've been busy networking here as well, right?
Yeah, I think that Texylvania is a great place for networking. And actually, when I was first time in 2022, I was super impressed during the presentation of Mark Porter, and I asked Vlad to introduce me to him. We spent like hours those 2 days discussing, and actually I came back to him and offered him to join us. It was not a very easy process because he was at the time a board member of a publicly listed company in the US, but it took us almost a year to do all of the procedures, but he's now a full member of our board.
So that's the power of networking, like you're demonstrating, and the power of never giving up and really pushing hard. So I love that. Anyway, let's go back and explore a little bit the early times when you founded Superbet. So what was the vision when you started the company, and how has it evolved since?
I always, when I speak with my teams and all of my partners, I always remind them about this video, 17 minutes video on YouTube from Reed Hastings, which really had a huge influence on me, where I understood, because I was a big believer that you need to settle the culture very early and that you need to stick to it. And then actually he told that Netflix culture, it's like evolving and changing regularly, and that he think that as Netflix become bigger, it become better because he just have much more smart people around the table with whom to debate about next steps. And I think this is really true. I mean, also I feel that Superbet today, it's a way, way better organization. It was even 18 months ago, and of course better than 3 years ago, and so on. And that was a kind of great lessons that you always need to question all of your beliefs, and something which you're 100% sure that it's true today may be totally wrong in a year or two.
So when do you know to stick to what you earlier believed, and when do you adjust it? How do you strike that balance in like, right, like there's like, sometimes people like, they wake up every morning and they have a new vision for something, and then it obviously drives everybody crazy, but also some people like just stick to one thing they always believe. How do you strike that balance between flexibility and stubbornness?
It's very difficult. I mean, it took me 20 years of failure to build my own experience around this. So, but I think this is really something which you need to find. And I think it's very different in every case. Different in different industries, different in different with different people. But this is really very, very important that you need to find when is the moment to give up, and when and to just pivot on something, but in the same time not giving up too early, because whatever you succeed, it will always be much harder than you think. I mean, I like very much Jensen Huang. I actually made a lot of money thanks to him because I was a very early investor in NVIDIA. And what he told me, if he would be back in his 30 years earlier, he would never start the company again because it was like 1 million times harder than he thought it would be. No.
And that's your lesson too. It was.
Yeah, I would still start it again, but yes, it was like 1 million times harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I think on the flip side of that, right, like also you become a lot better along the way and you learn a lot, right? Like, so I think this is, it's very hard, and speaking from personal experience, I couldn't agree more. But also like you rise to the challenge, right? Like I think all of us are like when you go to the gym, right? Like if you work out and practice, you become stronger, and the same thing is true for companies.
Yeah, I mean, it's sure, because when I think about this, like when I look back in time, I just feel, it's a kind of like a computer game, so yeah, like you have levels, so you need to do all of the tasks in one level to go to the next level and then to the next level, but then suddenly every 5 or 6 level, all the rules change. So when you think that, you're just better and better what you do, then suddenly, everything change, collapse, and you need to start to think a different way in order to become good to the next levels. And then again, 3, 4, 5 years later, that level again changed. So that, yeah, it teaches you to be more humble, that you're not as smart as you think sometimes that you are, and it teaches you also like to be more flexible, because I think this is really, really very important.
Yeah, I mean, maintaining humility at a billion-dollar startup founder is obviously not easy, so hats off to you. I want to dive in a little bit on this, like where we talked about the evolving of the vision. The other thing you also said, right, like the game is changing, technology is changing. So what do you think is like the technology and the intersection with sports betting in the next 5 to 10 years? How's that going to change and evolve?
Look, as we are looking on this, everything become like a fight around the time people spend on their devices, because you have a certain amount of time you spend on the device, which probably it's higher than it should be, because you should have also time for doing other activities in your life which are not like linked just to the devices you have in your hand. But at the end, it become more of, how much time I will spend listening music versus playing games versus betting versus doing other stuff. And that's why it become like more and more a more complicated discipline that it used to be maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier, right? Like you also very actively invest in technology that's further out, right? Like I think that is like one thing that really impressed me, that you're not like you talked about this like upgrading to like kind of different, like when the game changes and stuff like that. So how do you think about like investing in stuff that's a little bit further out?
Look, it's always challenging, especially in our case. We have Blackstone, one of the biggest investment companies in the world, as an investor. And my friends from Blackstone at every board meeting told me, "Do you think it's soon over, so we don't need to invest any more in technology?" And then I told them, "No, unfortunately, we'll need to invest even more." So I mean, today Superbet invests around 100 million euro a year in technology. And we are like also doing, we just hired our first AI research engineers. Actually, I was very proud on my team because they succeeded to hire in London some great talents from Meta. And don't ask me the budget, but it was like, I perceive this as a very necessary investment for us to continue to innovate.
Yeah, no, I think, well, like that's a sizable investment in hiring. Like, what got you to hire like a research engineer versus like an applied like engineering data scientist? Walk us through the thinking behind why making that investment?
Look, I used to be a chess player when I was a kid, and I understood, even I was like 15 years ago, I was 100% sure that a computer will never be able to beat a human. And then today I've seen that actually, the best humans in the world don't have any chances against the best computers. So whatever we are doing, which we consider in our business like a very, very specific skills, like sport, odds, all of these statistics and probabilities, I'm actually sure that AI, well-trained AI, will be way more efficient in solving those issues in the future. And in order to be able to apply it, you first need need to own your technology because it's very difficult to think you can apply AI on third-party technologies. And I was thinking that, okay, we were very lucky that compared to our, I would say, biggest global competitor, we actually started developing our technology way later. So we had different access to technology than they had. And I was thinking that we need also to actually be the first one or one of the first to apply this. So whatever breakthrough we will find, we will be able to apply it and increase our competitive advantage to our competitors on the world scene.
I love how you're telling your investors to be patient and go in for the long run. So maybe what we talked earlier, maybe you'll be the first $1 trillion company out of Romania. So that would be like a good success story. But let's take about that in the Texylvania 2035 maybe.
Yeah.
But back to the Superbet story and the growth that you've experienced. Along the way, as you grew the company, because it's grown very, very fast, what were the biggest challenges in scaling the companies, and how did you overcome those?
There were different challenges in different times, because as I told, since you are going from level to level, every level have his own challenges. I mean, in the early days, it's always cash. So, I mean, you always miss cash, so you always need to find some ways how you can continue scaling, covering all of your operating costs, doing some research, some improvement of your products, and at the same time scaling. And now I think lately for us, the biggest challenge is to getting the right talents. So I think that I also, even today, I think that I spend probably 80% of my time, even I have different other ventures, since I don't have an active role in Superbet anymore. I fired myself as a CEO in 2019. I fired myself as the chairman of the board in 2023. But still I spend 80% of my time with Superbet. And out of my time with Superbet, probably 80% of the time it's talent recruiting, spending hours a day on LinkedIn and trying to find whom else I could bring in our system.
Yeah, that is such a great advice for where founders can spend their time, right? Because that's how you scale yourself, right? I think this is a lesson my earlier co-founder told me. Your key role is to make yourself redundant, and that doesn't mean you retire and do nothing. It means you can do higher value work, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of what you've demonstrated throughout your career. You made yourself redundant as a CEO because you hired somebody. You made yourself redundant as that, and now you add value where it is. And the true value for companies is a team, right? That's kind of the lesson here.
Yeah, and we even in our performance management for the top C-level executives and the level under them, we put their way of hiring other talents as almost as important as the financial results they are bringing to us.
That's really powerful. Talking about growth and scaling the company, the last big move you guys made is expanding to Latin America. Which is obviously a big but also very different market. Take us through that journey and how's it been so far?
It's an interesting journey because you have a lot of learnings. So I mean, we started Brazil in December 2023, and we were very optimistic that our experience from operating in Europe, mostly Central Europe, but also Belgium, will be enough for us to be really ready for all the challenges. We had a great, very, very good wake-up call. We lost around 10 to 12 million euros in the first 2 months through bonus frauds. Then we find out from our meta friends that actually Brazil is considered as one of the best markets in the world from the fraud point of view. They are super, super innovative how to find ways to fraud you better. So it increased all of our, and then we took it as a learning. So we put our best teams to work on our fraud detection systems. And within 2 months, we succeed to find solutions. And actually now we just applying those tools in our existing markets, we find out that we are having 3-4 million euro a year of frauds in Romania we never thought about, So that was how we because my bet when we started Brazil was that, okay, it's like once in a lifetime opportunity that you have such a huge market regulating, and if you don't enter very early, it will be way too late and way too expensive to come later. And if you succeed to build a kind of podium position in the market with Brazil, it actually put a stamp of you that you're really a global company. And then it gives you like a real place from where you can then go and think about, okay, how can I now go to Mexico, to Colombia, to Peru, and potentially, in my way of thinking, it was always that you need to have like two different, very strong geographies before thinking of going on the next big kind of stuff like the US or Indian market.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And when we earlier chatted on, you also shared that you were skeptical yourself in going to Brazil in the first place. Talk us through that, how your thinking has evolved, because I found it really fascinating. Because, right, like we talked earlier about when to be flexible, when to be stubborn. Talk us through what you thought in the beginning and how your thinking has evolved, and then obviously entering at the end.
Yeah, I mean, my way of thinking, and I think it was also one of the secret of Superbet success in the early days, was that we were always very disciplined. So I mean, it's very easy as a founder and as an entrepreneur to get the focus, because as you told, different ideas come every day, and I think that probably 70% of my early failures in business was based on that I get a new great idea every 2 weeks, and I try to implement the new great idea before the old one was really put in place. And with those lessons learned, you know, people tell that you should not do the same mistake 2 times. I'm probably not as smart, but after I repeated like 6 times, I really learned it. So I told, okay, now I really need to be very disciplined. And that's actually how we were really disciplined. Like for 10 years, we almost didn't went anywhere from our main goal. And when they came, when I heard first time about the Brazilian opportunities, which was like summer 22, I was not so enthusiastic. I was thinking, okay, this is one more of those big hypes, but it's too far from us, it's too complicated, we don't have a real chance. But then, like 6 months later, late 22, early 23, I found out that one of our main competitor, which is also Central European based, actually went to Brazil, and not only they went there, but they become super, super successful. Within 18 months, they get that podium position. And then I understood, okay, I put my teams to really work and to try to understand what they're doing in Brazil. Is it any different in their products than what they are having in Central Europe? And when we understood that it's almost the same product, I just came to the logic, okay, if they can do it, then we should be able to do it, because we are just way bigger company, we have much more resources, so let's go there. I can tell that the other stakeholders in Superbet were not so happy about the idea, but I can be a convincing person, so I can convince Blackstone and convince my board and convince my management, and we actually decided to get there. And I can admit now we used a small trick. In order to get this pass, we convinced everyone that we need to do a test, and we agreed on the board level that we'll make a budget of 5 or 8 million euros for us to do a test in Brazil. So we get this approval so that people can already start working on the project and actually hiring team in Rio for this. And then a month later, I told them, yeah, it's great, but you know what? I just changed my mind. I would like to invest 150 million in the first year, you know. So, and again, it took like a month or 2 of shocking discussion, but then we ended up with disagreeing, and we're actually investing 150 million euros in Brazil in 2024.
Listening to you tell the story, it sounds very easy all of a sudden. But I think what I really appreciate is how you're, even at the moment when you think it's maybe not a great idea, you're open-minded to listen, take in new information, study the market, study competitors. And I mean, the logic is very clear, right? Like if a competitor that you manage to outperform in your market and they manage to do it, why shouldn't you be able to do it, right? Like, so that's, I think very powerful. So, with that, right, like, and I think this is being a learning organization, and as a leader in the tech industry, how do you foster this kind of innovation and this like boldness within your organization?
It's a never-ending process, you know, because it's so easy for people to become complacent, and it's so easy to get used to your comfort zone, and it's a combination of the two. Sometimes people adapt, and sometimes you just need to change people. You know,
People adapt, or you adapt the people.
kind of, yes.
Okay, all right. And but I think what I also like, I mean, again, right, like it goes all back to what you said earlier, right? Like when you have the best talent, then a lot of those things solve themselves, like from those people.
This is 100% sure. 100% sure. I mean, I'm lucky that in this moment, for us hiring talents, it's easier than it was like 2 years ago. We have a bunch of young guys which came from McKinsey. We have like very talented people who join us from Meta. We have very talented people which came from Google. And just the way when you put those guys and girls working together with also people which came from the industry and some of our old school Superbet Talibans, you know, it's a quite a unique culture, you know. So it's exciting. It's like
I can imagine. I can definitely imagine. So the hot topic, and we talked about technology a little bit. The hot topic of the day, obviously, is like artificial intelligence, machine learning. What do you see there specifically for your industry, and how's it going to change things in the next few years specifically?
look, I think, as I told you before, I'm quite sure that it will have a huge impact. That's why we have actually built that special projects, which is directly under the board supervision of developing AI capacities within the company. The project will be based in London because this is the right place in Europe to get the right talent. And we are now just working to see the applicability. So which part of the organization, there are like some very easy to spot, like the customer service and those kind of stuff. But actually in our business, we think that where it will really make a big difference will be one around all of our trading models. So that we think that this is something which will be really, because you need to get, you have the machine learning models where, just improving all of the stuff is there. But we think that with AI, you also need to understand a little bit sports, because this is the difference between the financial markets and the sports betting markets, is that you have also that sport component, which makes it a little bit more difficult to predict than in the financial markets. So I think this is probably one of the biggest place where I'm expecting that we will be applying all of the stuff which that new lab which we're building will make for us.
Very, very exciting, and definitely like a cool project to work on and like really figure out new things. The thing that Mircea touched on earlier, right? Like operating from Romania and building like a global champion, which is kind of like our talk here. So how has it influenced you being a Romanian-based global company, and what is advice you would give to entrepreneurs in the audience? How would you advise them to go about building a global champion from Romania?
Again, very, very big focus on talents and very big focus on diversity, because you need to combine people with different way of thinking, which will actually be very open to debate different topics, and it takes time, So whatever you put together, from my experience, it takes at least 1.5 to 2 years just that the people, start really to work together. So yeah, that's the things you need. We have today in Superbet management, we have a combination of Romanians, Croats, Germans, Danish CEO, Italians, Brazilians. So yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly also what Mircea was saying. But like the beauty of having multiple perspectives, the best people work together. That's where truly innovation happens, right? Like, so that's kind of the thing. Like and it's very inspirational that you've been able to do it from here, right? Like you didn't need to like relocate anywhere else. You could do it from here, and then of course like open global offices wherever it makes sense. But you've demonstrated well beyond a doubt that it's possible, which is, I think, the important lessons for people. So I want to switch a little bit to your other side, where you're spending some more of your time lately on your investments. So you're also having like a significant amount of investments in tech startup. So I mean, I think on both sides, right? Like, what do you look for when you either invest or acquire a company? What are the key things that you're looking for?
So when I started of this kind of process was like in 2019 when I started building my family office after my first deal with Blackstone, and when I was thinking, okay, now I can leave Superbet alone and not spend so much time with it, and I need something in order just to be sure that it will not get bored. And so I didn't really have any kind of thesis about what I'm looking for. It was like more I'm looking to entrepreneurs. So if I like the person, if I like the personality, if I like the drive, I want then, and I was mostly looking for people who have huge ambitions, you know, not someone who, okay, I want to build a company and sell it for 20 million or 10 million or 30 million or whatever, but really the people who like even being maybe a bit crazy, wanted just to build something which was looking almost impossible. And of course, I get there really based on my gut feeling with almost no teams. So I was really very successful. I succeed like out of my first 4 investments to lose all of the money in at least 3 of them within the first 6 to 9 months. And then we started putting a system a little bit around. I hired some people working with me already for 3-4 years, and we are still in the experimentation phase. So if you ask me today, my answer will be very different than if you have asked me 6 months ago about the same topic. Today we are more looking on investments which somehow are really either deep technology, which you can later use for some of the Superbet activities, or they're somehow related to whatever, sports, games, social networks. But again, something which we will, I'm now more looking how to add value to the Superbet ecosystem through those startups than really how to find the next big unicorn or whatever through my investments.
Okay, that's the very interesting evolution of your thesis. I'd be very keen when you said like you looked for these like ultra ambitious like founders. Who was like I don't know if you can share, but was there any story even without names that you can say like somebody who's really impressed you, and what was kind of like the essence of that where you said like I really bet on this person, that person will make it? How did you know and see that?
Look, yes, I can give an example. I mean, I don't have a problem to meet. It's one of the guy I met probably 4 years later than I should have met him, because he approached us first time in 2011-12, and instead of meeting by myself, I delegated to my team to meet him. So they came back to me and told me, look, the guy is just an arrogant youngster who thinks he's smartest in the world, so we should not waste time with him. So I listened to them, so I didn't waste time with him. And instead of buying him cheaply, I buy him like way more expensive 5 years later. And so, so it was like then 2017, I think, and that was the moment when Superbet really started thinking very, very seriously about technology, when we understood that actually for us the next big game will be technology, and that if we'll succeed to put the technology we want, it will be a game changer. And I was just reading a post on LinkedIn about a young Croatian guy telling that the future of gaming and entertainment will be mobile. And I called my team and told them, look, I'm coming to Zagreb next week. I would like to meet that guy. And they told me, yeah, sure, we arrange. But remember, that's the guy from 4 years ago and so on. So no way, no problem. So I went, I met him. And we actually very quickly agreed to buy his company. Actually, we didn't agree to buy his company. We first agreed to invest in his company, but it was a problem. He didn't want us as Superbet to invest because he was doing like B2B for betting company, and he told us if Superbet will invest, or my other clients won't want to do this. So I told him, okay, then I can invest if you want me personally. And he told me, yeah, but you will ask for this and that. It will take forever. I told him, no, look, send me tomorrow the contract and your bank account, and I will accept your conditions. So he told me, are you okay with 200,000 euro for 10%? Said, yes. So he sent me the contract. I wired him the money. He was very shocked by this, but I think it was a kind of proof of our trust. And I think 6 or 9 months later, we bought his company. And it became really a very successful part of the Superbet story. All our native apps are actually built by that company we bought in Croatia. He became the CPO of Superbet in 2018, and then a year and a half later, he just told us that he will leave because we are too bureaucratical and he cannot make innovation. He was probably true, and he left, starting his new startup. And then actually, we agreed that Superbet will be one of the investors, and my family office another investor in his startup. So he started building some very nice stuff around social, around sports fun, etc. And we're now just closing the deal where Superbet is buying again his second company, and he's again back in Superbet. So I hope that this time he will stay longer because we'll try to be less bureaucratic than we were in 2018-19.
I really appreciate like the humility that you're like kind of open-minded that the bureaucracy might be true, but also it shows like a theme that we had yesterday a lot was that the people that you work with and that you build relationships with, that you build trust with, oftentimes are things that go beyond like the relationship between one company and stuff like that, and it transcend, right? Go on his first startup, his second startup, and you kept in touch. He's obviously trusting you, and he's like willing to come back. So I wish you good luck that second time he stays for many, many years. So that's a great story. So as a final thing, and I'll keep asking you this as I hope you come many more times to Techsylvania as you're like adjusting things. Just as you stand now, as you're looking back on your career and reflect on that, what's kind of the most valuable lessons that you've learned and that you would like share with the audience?
I think one of the most valuable lessons is that you always need to question your beliefs. Because whatever you think, and that's actually the issue which I have seen in many young entrepreneurs, you need to have a self-confidence, but in the same time you need to actually double-check that self-confidence with some kind of humility, because you are not the smarter in the room. No one is the smarter in the room. So you need always to think about this, and you need to know that maybe it's because of you, but it's also maybe because just of the changing in the whole world around technology, that something which is today true will not be tomorrow. And if you are too much stubborn in your way of thinking, then you will just get to the wall sooner or later.
That is a wonderful advice. And thank you, Sacha, for taking us on your journey of learning.
Thank you.
As I said, we hope to have you back many, many more times in the future years. I'm sure you'll keep learning, right? Like you're still like evolving. So I'm really curious how Superbet is going to conquer the world beyond Brazil. So we'll look forward to hear the stories of the next battles and conquests in the years to come. Thank you for being so open. Thank you for sharing your time and inspiring this audience. Sacha is available at the Q&A stage right after this. So if you want to ask any follow-up questions to the sessions, please join the Q&A stage where Sacha is available. And with that, big round of applause for Sacha. Thank you so much.
Thank you.